Integral Bank is 7 o'clock.
CBM News at 7 headlines Tuesday, courtesy of Heart NSTA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency. Headlines Tuesday, courtesy of Heart NSTA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
CBM News at 7 Tuesday, brought to you by...
Say yes to the new onion ring zinger from KFC. It's finger-licking...
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. It's Tuesday, May 5, 2026. I'm Nika Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us for what will be a 30-minute package as we'll be taking you live to Barbican Beach for the launch of the Popeyes Challenge Cup at 7:30 p.m. Up first this evening, lingering tensions boiled over into the Parliament this week after a heated debate and the removal of the mace over the NARA bill last Tuesday. House Speaker Juliet Holness rebuked the opposition for their subsequent support of Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, who removed the mace briefly during a fallout with the Speaker. The Speaker maintains the behavior was unacceptable and sends the wrong message to the society. It appeared to be another stern rebuke of the opposition on Tuesday from House Speaker Juliet Holness. Her reprimand followed last week's parliamentary disruption by opposition MP Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, who briefly removed the mace during a heated exchange in the NARA debate in an effort to have her views heard. The Speaker insisted then and reiterated now that such conduct was unacceptable and sends the wrong signal to the wider society.
If a student believes that a teacher has been unfair, do we encourage that student to disregard the teacher, disrupt the class, seize what does not belong to them, and refuse to follow instructions? Or do we teach the student that there are proper avenues to raise concerns, challenge a decision, and seek redress? Of course, members of this House are not regarded as students, but the same principle applies here. A member may disagree with the chair. A member may disagree with her ruling or even believe that the process is unfair. But the answer cannot be disorder, defiance, or contempt for the institution.
Mrs. Holness says the standing orders exist to ensure proper procedure. Order is not the enemy, she insists, adding she will not be deterred by the critique from some members of the opposition.
I have many times in the past ignored personal disrespect from a few members of the opposition, including derogatory, subtle references, slurs, and disrespectful posturing. However, let me clearly indicate today that my resolve to ensure discipline prevails in the House of Representatives is unshaken and will never be deterred.
But Dr. Brownberg fired back, much to the surprise of some. Verbal darts aimed at the Speaker and her critics, insisting democracy is not just about wielding a sword of power, but allowing others to speak.
It is also about how you reach across the aisle and make accommodations and come to decisions to the benefit of all. I am tired of sitting here, pressing my mic, asking to say something, and you don't have even the decency of listening and then saying no. None of us here, none is clairvoyant. None of you live in my head. And therefore, even though you think you know me well, you do not know what I am going to say when I press my mic.
The opposition member, clearly still on the warpath, insists none of them is clairvoyant and should therefore be allowed the dignity to be heard. She continues, she's never been a submissive female and won't start now.
I stand here as a representative of the people of Southwest St. Andrews. I come from the traditions of Portia Lucretia Simpson. I come from Vincent Brown, who is still alive at 100 and would rue the day if he saw me in a position where I sat quietly and took disrespect. Never. Never.
In the meantime, the opposition is calling on the Speaker of the House to step down. Speaking at a hastily called briefing while Parliament was still in session, opposition members say the Speaker needs to be neutral. Amoy Harriet was at Gordon House.
So I'm standing outside Gordon House, where just a few minutes ago the parliamentary opposition concluded an impromptu press briefing where it addressed two pressing issues. One, the NARA bill, which passed in the House last week after hours of deliberation, which the opposition says it still has an issue with. And two, what the opposition is describing as improper conduct of the House Speaker. The opposition members are again insisting that it's time for House Speaker Juliet Holness be replaced.
The lack of respect by the Speaker, the way she tries to scold us as if we are school children, there is just no mutual respect. And I think it is time something is done.
I think that the rabbit partisan nature that is currently being displayed needs to be dealt with. If it is beyond her to be an unbiased arbitrator, then maybe the government, the governing party needs to look at appointing somebody else as a speaker. And if it is beyond us collectively to have someone who is elected operating that way, because I saw some communique from her elsewhere that she also has to answer to a political party that elected her. Maybe we should move to having an independent Speaker of the House.
Opposition member Angela Brownberg, in the meantime, in responding to last week's mace incident, is making it clear that she will not be issuing an apology.
If I were to apologize, I would not be true to myself. I would be a hypocrite, and I would hate to do that. I recognize that the standing orders allow the Parliament to decide on what that punishment is, what is asked of me in relation to that. An apology for handling the mace is not going to happen.
Reporting from outside Gordon House, I'm Amoy Harriet for CVM News.
Hope is rising higher as United Oil and Gas continues its exploration in Jamaican waters for oil and gas. Energy Minister Darrell Vaz in his sectoral presentation today disclosed that the country's success probability has risen to 30% from 10% for finding the much sought-after energy resources. Energy Minister Darrell Vaz told Parliament Tuesday that he remains cautiously optimistic as the search for oil and gas in Jamaica's waters continues with international explorers United Oil and Gas. This, as he explains, there's been an increase in the likelihood of the country finding the much sought-after resources.
It is usually between 10 and 30% probability for successfully finding oil or gas. You start out at 10% probability, 90%. You move from 10 to 30. 30 pretty much is the highest that you would go in relation to saying that you have the best probability of finding gas and oil. I'm happy to say that we started at 10% in 2016, and with the recent surveys, we would have reached 30%, which would mean that we will have interested parties to partner with United Oil and Gas, hopefully in due course.
He maintains, given the global energy transition, there is a demand for urgent diversification to Jamaica's energy mix.
I remain hopeful and cautiously optimistic. Let me put it no further than that. So further to developments in April this year, the latest updates from the ongoing exploration activities continue to support a cautiously optimistic outlook, while underscoring the need for careful, evidence-based progression at each phase of the process. The government remains measured in its approach, recognizing that any discovery would require significant investment, probably 60 to 80 million US to drill one well, and we would have 14 rigorous environmental safeguards and a clear regulatory framework to guide development. Importantly, this initiative is being pursued in a balanced manner, ensuring that exploration efforts align with Jamaica's national commitment to environmental protection.
Meanwhile, the energy minister says only about 1,343 Jamaicans are still without electricity after Hurricane Melissa's historic impact.
As of this morning, May 5th, the number of customers without power across Jamaica is 1,343. So we are now at 99.81%, Prime Minister. The parish breakdown for remaining customers is Westmoreland, 1,283, St. Elizabeth, 60. Of the remaining customers to be restored, approximately 40%, 538, are not ready to receive power safely due to property-related damage, leaving approximately 805 customers who can receive electricity service still to be restored.
Vaz maintains the remaining work was impacted by several issues, including adverse weather conditions and difficult terrain. And Minister Vaz has outlined plans to revisit the country's price tiers for fuel after declaring that despite the geopolitical spill-offs from the US-Iran war impacting oil prices, Jamaicans were spared the brunt of price hikes due to a price cap. He says that saw only about 18% of the increases being passed on. However, he notes the buffer in its current form is proving expensive.
While the buffer is effective, the intervention is costly, with projections reaching as high as $11.8 billion by June 2026, if maintained. As a result, the government is looking carefully at introducing a revised tiers pricing system to better reflect global market challenges while managing price volatility and other areas of concern.
Meanwhile, tempers flared at the blood bank's head office on Tuesday as workers walked off the job, citing long-standing concerns over leadership and conditions at the facility. Our reporter Kevin Black was there.
Top of my school now! Top of my school now! Top of my school now! End to victimization! End to harassment!
Workers at the National Blood Transfusion Service staged a peaceful protest on Tuesday, detailing to our news team what they deemed to be deplorable working conditions.
General Secretary of the Union of Technical, Administrative and Supervisory Personnel, UTASP, St. Patrick Ennis says the dispute dates back to 2024, when staff members reported alleged verbal abuse and governance issues at the facility.
Let us go back to 2024, when staff launched complaints that they were abused verbally, because the matter now is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Labour, and we have been talking together with the Ministry of Health to see how we can come to some understanding and way forward.
And he says that the union had reached an understanding that the Director of Laboratory Services would remain off-site while an independent panel investigates the complaints.
What we have agreed upon, as far as I understand, is that the Director of Laboratory Service, Dr. Tapper, should remain off the premises, not do anything to provoke the workers to cause what we are now having, this protest action, that the status quo remain off the premises until the process is complete. What has happened is that Dr. Tapper is off the process and has presented herself here, and that has caused the provocation at variance to what we have agreed to with the Ministry of Labour, with the Ministry of Health, as I understand it, that the status quo in terms of she working off-site remains. That has not happened today, and that is what has given rise to this protest action that you're seeing today.
The union also raised concerns about working conditions at the facility, including reports of infrastructural issues and bird infestation.
I know that there have been some other contamination from birds, infestation and so on, but the real issues that affect staff members, they have not been tackled. What we know, they'll not be normalcy in the way we understand it. As to what form that will take, that is a matter to be decided when that time comes.
Mr. Ennis detailed that the relevant authorities are working on a conclusion that should satisfy all parties involved. I am Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
An appeal to the Sugar Industry Authority and Ministry of Agriculture this evening to assist cane farmers attached to the Froome Sugar Factory who say they're now jobless and hopeless following an abrupt end to the sugarcane season. In an interview with CVM News on Tuesday, Chairman of the All-Island Jamaica Cane Farmers Association, Dr. Horace Charu, says he's disappointed that the authorities have not engaged with the farmers since the closure of the season, nor in the wake of the recent Pan-Caribbean sugar recall controversy, to provide updates or reassurance. Details in this report.
Tension is brewing among sugarcane farmers who are growing increasingly frustrated as their source of income has been cut short. Froome Sugar Factory began its sugarcane harvesting season in January, with operations initially slated to run for 4 to 5 months. However, unusual and frequent rainfall forced an early shutdown, with the season first set to end on April 18. A 12-day extension was later granted, pushing operations to April 30, followed by a further 2-day extension which ended last Saturday. But Chairman of the All-Island Sugarcane Farmers Association, Dr. Horace Charu, says farmers were given an assurance that they would be allowed to continue reaping until May 10, a commitment he says was not fulfilled.
These farmers who have not reaped would have got nothing for this crop, nothing. They have spent their money to bring the cane to the fields to a point where they could deliver these canes and receive payment for this crop. They would now not have anything to look forward to. And they're now going to be expected to provide maintenance for these fields for another 12 to 14 months. That include materials for weed control, labor, and even some fertilizer. And with these costs going up for the next, I don't know how long, they're going to be hit with additional costs just to stay alive.
Many of the affected farmers are from St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, parishes hardest hit by Hurricane Melissa. He says with farmers still recovering from the storm and now facing rising global prices, the early closure has only deepened their struggles. Dr. Charu says he's especially disappointed that there has been no word from neither the Sugar Industry Authority nor the Agriculture Minister. He's calling on the entities to assist the farmers.
We have not been able as an association to sit down with either manufacturers, SIA, or the Ministry of Agriculture as stakeholders. We have not had any official, and I'm very disappointed in that. I am going to request a meeting at the highest level with the Ministry